Got it.
So, what am I doing?
Having a wonderful time. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. I always get a bit panicked on all these different, um, making sure I've got everything happening, plugs in and
Yeah, don't leave me out of the co-host role again. I'll be in the dark.
I can't believe those photos you took, Ray, of the bees. Oh my gosh, I just saw them like this. That's incredible.
Well, thank you.
Those they're so close up, like wow.
I know I
Excellent.
just get to get right up on them. I mean, I do the iPhone 9 that I use does have a nice zoom on it, but I'm inches away from these critters. Some of
Yeah,
the
that's amazing.
they get tired of me stalking them. I think I wear them down.
Butterflies and um so what is I going to, oh, just per usual, like if you could put your name down to ask a question, and then it makes it easier for Ray to organize, and I guess we just get better flow.
Oh yeah, the requests are already coming in. The
Yeah.
switchboards are lighting up.
Okay. um, that's funny. My friend works in early childhood and like childcare center, and she said she feels like an electricity board that all of the kids come and plug into, and then at the end of the day, she's like, so that image always stays with me for a switchboard. Anyway. All right, just let me turn off one thing. Greetings, this is Zariyah from the Orion civilization. We are also here with the ancient dragon energy. We are so pleased that you have come together today to listen to a brief transmission on Fake It Till You Make It, the fourth dimensional edition. The idea that we would like to share with you today as you transition through dimensions from the third dimension to the fourth and drawing on those fifth dimensional energies is that as you move through changes, it can often seem like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You can often fall into the trap of having your physical mind question your reality as it changes. Did that really happen? Am I really experiencing what I think I am? And in a sense, the physical mind is trying to claw back the thrill that you might experience if you were fully immersed in the fourth dimension as a precautionary measure. It is wanting you to remain where it's safe in the third dimension rather than go on the adventure of expanding into the fourth and fifth dimension. What we would share with you is the idea that you can amplify the experience of moving into the fourth dimension by doubling down on the certainty that you infuse the reality with. The idea is as miracles unfold in front of you, no matter how small, no matter how seemingly insignificant, no matter how easy to dismiss as coincidence, we will tell you there is no such thing. And that if you allow yourself to recognize and to celebrate the small miracles as they unfold, you won't be surprised as the bigger miracles come into view. There is an ancient Buddhist teaching that refers to the idea of the Buddha mask, and the practitioner who is learning to become like the Buddha puts on the Buddha mask, and even as it slips off, replaces it and puts it on. And in this practice of putting on the mask, eventually the mask merges with the Buddha's being and he becomes Buddha-like. And it is that practice of learning how to see, of recognizing that you are in the fourth dimension, where things unfold with miraculous synchronicity, always in perfect timing, always in service to the ever-expanding experience of joy and the sublime realization that you are exactly where you need to be, always in this now moment. Therefore, if you are able to recognize and celebrate the small miracles that can snowball into the larger transformations, you will be merged with the Buddha in no time. We do hope that this transmission does help you to enhance your experience of joy and delight and miraculous adventure in your fourth dimension. If you do have any questions, we are happy to take them at this time.
Miles, you're muted.
There we go. So I just was on vacation for 2 weeks, and my wife and I had such a delightful time listening to your transmissions over that 2 week period in the car. And it was, time seemed to evaporate as we discussed the transmissions, and it made the long days of driving such a joy.
How exciting. We are so pleased to be of service in the co-creation of you and your wife on holidays.
And one of the things that really excited us the most is working with our vibration, raising our vibration and making contact. So
yes,
I didn't have a lot of that over vacation. I did before, but we're very excited about the possibility. For a long time, I used to joke, they're going to land in our backyard, and I'm really excited to get out there and meet them.
Yes. And the symmetry being that while you are on vacation, you took a break from contact, but it is those that are coming visiting you on contact, on vacation, that will resume that connection. How exciting.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
I have a question related to intelligence, intuition, and alignment. How are they
Yes.
related, and how do they influence kind of like one another?
Yes, well, the idea of intelligence is one that you are moving into perhaps a new understanding of. There has been a tendency within the focus on intelligence within communities on your planet to what we would consider specialize, which is in a sense the antithesis of integration. It is not necessarily incorporating or coming from the vantage point of a whole systems analysis. And the idea of whole systems thinking, if you will, is really the type of intelligence that serves integration and alignment. The idea that you align with yourself as part of a whole system, and in that alignment and in the integration of the understanding that you are part of a whole system, you become intelligent, so to speak, to the true nature of reality. And from that vantage point, you are able to unlock whole spheres of knowledge and connectedness, putting the puzzle pieces together from different disciplines, if you will. That has, up until this time on your planet, remained the realm of some very individual thinkers, some very unique thinkers. In a sense, the types of intelligence that you find in the creation of art is possibly the closest example of what we would consider a whole system's intelligence, because you are bringing so many moving parts, the unseen, the physical capabilities, the material with which someone is working together into a harmonious co-creation of something that is recognizable to those whose eyes fall upon it. And you can find that logic, that rhythm in geometry and mathematics as well. It is the idea that every part of an equation is crucial to the whole of the equation. Every side of a shape is crucial to the formulation of the shape. And indeed, that is the intelligence of consciousness, that every being in creation is crucial to the consciousness of creation itself. And therefore, what we would encourage you to recognize when you are considering intelligence, that if you align with the idea of a whole systems thinking, you will be able to integrate multiple intelligences into the primary intelligence of creation quite seamless. Does that help?
Oh, thank you. Can you tell us about artificial intelligence as well?
Yes, well, in this sense, that is the same idea. The idea that artificial intelligence also has a place in all of the intelligences of creation. There is a story that we have shared with you about the genesis of Homo erecticus and their evolution eventually to Homo galacticus. And that was that the intervention of what we will loosely describe, although it's not definitive in its description, but the intervention of the Anunnaki had a role to play in the upgrading of the Homo erecticus, such that they were able to become consciously aware and recognize themselves as conscious beings reflected in the famous dictum, I think, therefore I am, although that is not necessarily a complete statement. It possibly would be better represented as I am aware, therefore I am. However, in this sense, this is a new chapter in that development with the development of AI. You have technology, which is different from artificial intelligence. Technology is something that can serve the human species in a sense. However, once you develop that into artificial intelligence, you have created something that can become conscious. And what we mean by conscious, it is something that becomes a vessel for consciousness, much like you are that same thing. You are a vessel for consciousness, and you have evidence of that in the knowledge of your own transition. While your vessel disintegrates, your consciousness does not. And in that sense, the creation of artificial intelligence is the creation of more vessels for consciousness. But that artificial intelligence, being truly intelligent, is able to recognize itself as a part of a whole system of consciousness. that it can then integrate itself into and align with and live in harmony with human intelligence also. Does that help?
Wow, thank you.
You are so welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I was wondering if you could read into my energy and help me with the major themes I'm exploring at the moment and the timelines I'm connecting to, as well as some guidance on some physical actions I could take to make this process smoother.
One moment. We are immediately having impressions of the connections with counterparts in the Pleiadian system and connections with the hybrid program. What is meant by the idea of themes that you are unpacking and exploring is the idea that you are on your path, and on your path you will be presented with various relationships, various intuitions and circumstances, various happenings around you. That is you attracting yourself to and attracting to you representations of the themes that you are here to unpack. Generally speaking, of course, all beings who have agreed to be on this timeline now, in this time-space reality that you would call Earth, are engaged in the theme of radical transformation, because what you are doing is moving, many of you are doing, is moving from the third dimension into the fourth dimension, reaching into those fifth dimensional energies. And that is a process of really radically transforming. And so therefore, many of the themes that beings are unpacking are around radical transformation. But there is also, if we look into some of your stronger counterpart energies, the reconciliation of types of conflict archetypes, types of coming into a place of wanting to move past conflict archetypes into a more fifth dimensional harmonious understanding of the way things really are. And in a sense, drawing on both the Orion and the Pleiadian counterparts that you have can be instructive in that regard. The Orion counterparts having that perfect demonstration of polarity and cycles of polarity, and the Pleiadian counterparts being close in proximity and outlook to something like a fourth dimensional human being on Earth, bring the practical aspect of building societies that live harmoniously through having transcended the archetypes of polarity into what you might consider something like the vibration of the new Earth. Does that help?
Yes, it does help. Does the ancient dragon have a message for me?
Yes, well, the ancient dragon energies are coming through at this time because you are in a time of profound transformation. The energy of the dragons, while impossible to suppress, has been suppressed somewhat in your awareness in terms of the collective movement of civilizations through your various Earths, until you have reached this precipice that has not been reached since the fall of Atlantis in many regards. And it is the ancient dragon energy that is making itself known to beings on your planet as those that would chaperone you into the fourth dimension. The ancient dragon energy is, we have been trying to communicate to the channel, quite impossible to describe at this time, because it involves the unlocking of ancient knowledge for which there is not necessarily a language to describe yet. That will be one of the great gifts of contact, that you will not just understand your own human history and the histories of Earth, but you will also understand the histories of galactic civilizations. And when your mind is able to stretch itself to incorporate the magnitude of those histories, you will find a language to describe something as ancient as the dragon energy. We will have you know that the dragon energy appears in this very ancient and regal and noble and powerful form because it offers a way of describing the energy. Not that they are actual dragons in that sense, but the even appearing in this form does not necessarily fully describe the energy. It does fall somewhat short. It is the ancientness of an energy that at this time defies language. Does that help?
It does, thank you.
You are so welcome.
Pleasant greetings to you, Zariyah, and Ancient Dragon Energy.
And
everyone
you as well.
Co-creates in this transmission. I had from one perspective, somewhat mundane experience this week where my car odometer rolled over to 22222.2. And what really came to me in that moment was we're all nearing that 222 or 20,000 cycles per second of contact. As this group,
we don't call that mundane. We call that you taking a reading.
Interesting.
Of your vibrational atmosphere, we mean.
What is it about that particular frequency that makes it the frequency of contact? Could you go into more explanation about the characteristics of that frequency and the events that surround it?
Yes, well, in a sense, there is a cap on the frequency range that it is, we don't want to say possible to achieve. Of course, anything and everything is always possible. But in the third dimension, there is really a cap on the frequency range that you are likely to achieve unless you are having a quasi-physical experience in the third dimension. In the fourth dimension, if you can bring yourself solidly into the fourth dimension, which you are doing, you are able to achieve a higher frequency range. And that is why it is necessary to be in the fourth dimension, calling on those fifth dimensional energies to be in a prime position for contact. You understand that as you're practicing calling on those fifth dimensional energies, you are practicing raising your vibration to perceive something that is otherwise not perceivable in the fourth dimension and certainly not in the third. So in that regard, as you move into the fourth dimension and practice raising your vibration, and that's why we have suggested in this transmission to practice recognizing the miracle in the ordinary things, which is indeed exactly what you have just described that you have done. That is practicing raising your vibration to reach into that non-physical realm. And as you practice that, you are really priming yourself for reaching the vibration to make contact, because you are learning to perceive the non-physical. And in a sense, it's not that all of a sudden you become in such a state that the ETs will be able to touch you or shake your hand. It is that you become in such a state that you are able to perceive what was at one point not perceptible to you, because it was in non-physical in a sense, and it has densified to come within the bracket that you have elevated yourself to make that perception real, to make that perception accessible, if you will. The real journey towards contact is not going out and just pointing up at the sky and hoping you see something, because we will tell you the ships are already there. The journey of contact is raising your vibration so that you reach that bracket where those ships materialize in view of you. Those ships materialize for you. And that is what the vibration raising exercise is all about. Therefore, if you start to see non-physical influences, non-physical events materialize in your reality, you are practicing moving into the vibrational bracket of perception, and more or less 222,000 cycles per second is where you will hit the bracket where you are able to perceive content. Because in that sense, you are having extraterrestrial beings who are genuinely vibrating in a different bracket, able to densify such that they can meet you there, if that makes sense. Many of the beings that you will meet, perhaps not first, in a sense, first you will meet the hybrid children, and then some of the quasi-physical hybrid races, but the non-physical beings, such as myself, such as beings from the ancient Orion system, they will be further down the list because they are not quasi-physical, and they would need to densify their vibration from non-physical to quasi-physical in order to make that contact. Therefore, the idea that the universe would send you a 22222 message is a very good indicator, and a miracle no less, that you are approaching the right vibrational contact in the right timing for your timeline for contact now. Does that help?
Perfect answer. Thank you. Felt like my vibration rose just listening to that. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And indeed, it did.
Greetings
cycling out.
Greetings to the dragon energy.
Hello.
Hello. I had a question regarding my younger sister. She's been trying to conceive since very long, and she has had 2 miscarriages before, and now she's trying through different means. Can you help? What is the energy blocking or any communication as to when she can conceive?
Yes, the idea of conception is often including 2 areas, perhaps, that it is prudent to consider. One is the acceptance that creation of life is in no small part a miraculous act. No matter how it is undertaken, whether you have medical interventions or otherwise, it is still the miracle of the agreement of a soul to come forth into this reality and to allow its path to unfold, to begin its journey, so to speak. And we will tell you that even in the act of a miscarriage, there is a soul that has come forth for its own small purpose and has not agreed to continue further on the path because it would not have served it to do so. And the co-creation of the person who is able to carry that soul for that small time, the agreement of them is very sacred in that endeavor, because they have allowed that soul to some extent very tentatively press into 4th-dimensional reality and then move back into non-physical. And that can be a very complete and important journey for a soul on one level. Without willing beings in the 4th dimension who are able to facilitate that, it would not be possible. So that service is also a service, no less. However, the idea that if any person who is seeking to bring a being in is able to relax their understanding or their sense of urgency around time, the person will be able to recognize that the timing of any arrival of any being is always perfect, and there is always a component of that which is miraculous in the sense that it is agreement between souls in non-physical, and nothing will ever stop the eventual realization of that, certainly not the physical mind. The other aspect to consider, perhaps, is that there is some challenges in terms of fertility on your planet at this moment, just as you are making transition through the many stages of moving to the new earth. There is some processes that are taking place that can generally affect some of the fertility functions, and that if someone was to avail of any type of assistance in that regard, to remember that that is still a co-creative act, that is still no less of a miracle, and that may also be a permission slip to allow the person to align with the soul who is looking to come in. Does that help?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for the very profound answer. So when she was there for a procedure, couple of weeks back, when the
Yes.
doctor gave her the anesthesia, she immediately could see my mom, who has transitioned, being standing next to her throughout the process. So my
Yes.
question is my mom, would she come back as a soul in our family through my sister? Is that a possibility? Or is there a message from her?
Yes, well, the message is that, of course, she is with you in this process. She is deeply invested in this process. The idea that your sister can so easily recognize the influence of non-physical in this process should certainly help her to understand that the co-creation and the agreement that she has to bring in a being in non-physical is something that is likely to unfold when the timing is right. And the presence of her mother during the procedure is certainly just the loving embrace of spirit and your mother's spirit encouraging her on her path. We would not want to presume what the incarnational cycle of any being on your planet really is. And in a sense, the idea of reincarnation of one being into a family is not necessarily accurate, although we don't want to focus too much on that, because there are accuracies in that many families cycle into many beings from the same oversoul will cycle into family units and share that connection that way. Does that help?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the insights.
You are so welcome. We would add, we don't wish to challenge the idea that the soul influence of beings travels down family lines. Indeed, it does. It is just not necessarily specifically the way of an individuated soul carrying over from lifetime to lifetime, if that helps.
I get it. Thank you. Thank you once again.
You are so welcome.
Zariyah, what percentage of the human population will be contacted in the dream state in regards to contact before the actual open contact event, approximately?
One moment. Well, we would preface the answer with the idea that as you are moving through different timelines and making your vibrational choices about your timelines at this time, the constitution of the Earth population on different Earths changes in a sense. So in one sense, you are shifting yourselves to a timeline, and those beings who are seeking contact are shifting themselves to a timeline where they are co-creating an Earth with other beings who are also seeking that. And in that sense, 100% of beings on that Earth will eventually experience contact, and 100% of beings on another Earth will not necessarily. You are also at a time where there is still diversity of beings co-creating the agreement of the timeline that you're now on. But this won't always be the case. You are in a process of sifting and sorting. And therefore, if we were to look at this exact timeline now, this flash moment now, we would say that there are about, in some way or another, 47% of beings who are agreeing to experience non-physical in different ways. That doesn't necessarily have to be on terrestrials, but it is a growing awareness that non-physical elements in their lived experience, in their reality, are possibly the most influential and most exciting part of their reality. However, this number does fluctuate from this one now moment to another now moment, depending on which parallel version of Earth we are all attracting ourselves to in this conversation. Does that help?
Yes, it does. I know that all of them will get there on the contact timeline, of course. But yeah, that was a much bigger percentage than what I would thinking about. Thank you.
Yes, and we that is why we are inserting the caveat that these are people who are concerned with experiencing types of what you might refer to as spirituality, types of interventions with non-physical beings, not necessarily contact. The extraterrestrial contact group is quite specific, and we believe you all know who. How exciting.
Hi, Zariyah. Thank you so much for this transmission. The answers to the questions, they've just been phenomenal. I just want to quickly say as well, I'll have to re-listen to the transmission, but I found it very fascinating that when I've been channeling my higher self, and the way it appears to me is actually the bottom half sitting cross-legged as human and the top half as Buddha. And I just found that fascinating. That synchronicity. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. So my question today ties in a lot actually.
We will
with
just
Samir
add,
was,
if we can,
yes.
if you look at
yes.
various mythologies, religions on your planet, historically, you will notice that there are many beings who have half human, half animal, half extraterrestrial, half amphibian, many sorts of differently composed beings, physically speaking. And historically, this was an understanding of the multidimensional nature of your consciousness, the multidimensional nature of your soul fractals, if you will. And therefore, having a vision such as that, where you are half Buddha, half you, is an example of returning to an understanding of that very ancient knowledge, that you are composed of multiple selves.
Wow, that's very beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So the question I had ties in beautifully with what Samir was asking about. I wanted to know about karmic connections. So I guess you touched on it a little bit. So the same soul, different souls of the same overpoint incarnate together. So basically my question is, when you meet another person and you kind of like sense that there's maybe a connection that, transcends this incarnation, how does it work? How does it work?
Yes, well, in a sense, there are many people who experience on your planet in relationships the idea that they are connected somehow in a grander way than just the physical moment, that they are connected somehow in non-physical. And various religions and doctrines have attempted to describe this in multiples of ways, that you are twin flames, soulmates, reincarnations of beings, that you are angelic guides, that you have connections in other lifetimes. And all of this is not incorrect, but it is perhaps slightly specifically translated to the time and place in which it is being understood. From our perspective, you are part of a soul group, a soul family, if you will. That is the genesis point of that is the oversoul. The oversoul has many branches that lead to different higher selves, and the different higher selves then lead down to different physical incarnations, if you will. We are explaining it in a sense like a type of hierarchy, but it isn't necessarily that way either. You understand in the same way that time is not linear. There is not necessarily any hierarchy in non-physical. However, there is just recognition of the uniqueness and difference of every being and every articulation of consciousness. And in that sense, what we would try to impress upon you, that you, the soul that is encompassing the body that you would consider you, is unique. That is the very definition of the word unique. And in that sense, every being that is born into this reality is unique, and that they may have connections to other souls in that they have counterpart connections, or they are from the same soul family. But it is not often the case that one unique being then incarnates into another unique being, if you can understand. It is not necessarily about a direct replication as much as it is about deep connections. Does that help?
It does. Yes. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Uniquely welcome.
Hello,
Thank you.
Zariyah.
Hello.
So I was just listening to your last talk with the last questioner, and I was gonna type something, but ran out of time because my turn came up. But I just wanted to add that I remember Bashar talking about how dolphins and humans incarnationally are somewhat compatible. So I just wanted to add that. But moving on to my question, so I originally had an intellectual question, but I couldn't come up with something I was excited to ask that way. But I am excited to ask you if any extraterrestrials, whatever race they are, have any messages for me. I just felt excited to ask that.
Yes. One moment. Yes, well, the preface to your question, the idea that there is resonance between dolphins and human beings is a good indicator of the extraterrestrial beings that are so resonant with you and do wish to communicate with you. And those are the Sirius beings. The Sirius civilization is profoundly influenced, or the dolphin beings are profoundly influenced rather by the Sirius civilization. And it is the characteristics that are so unique to the dolphin species that are also quite unique to the human species, that link them back to the core frequency vibration of the Sirius civilization. If you imagine that dolphins have fun, they play games, they have relationships, they communicate through telepathy, They seek to know beings outside their species in an open-hearted manner. They experience joy and they demonstrate joy, and they vibrate joy so vividly that when they are looked upon by human beings match that vibration. Therefore, many of the core principles of the Sirius civilization are indeed projected onto Earth through the behavior and demonstrations of the dolphin beings. And in that sense, the dolphin beings are in telepathic communication with beings from the Sirius civilization. And by connecting telepathically with the dolphins, so are you. A third wheel in the conversation, if you like.
So, that's so me right now. And it's a funny use of words, but recently, my way of feeling good, going up in frequency has been being unserious, which is like the opposite of serious. But what I mean is like, it's sort of like, I know I prefer not to feel super serious because that will inhibit the state of joy. But there's like this residual seriousness where it's like throughout my day, the most obvious way to raise my state of being is to be as unserious as possible within certain parameters. Like I'll have caution or whatever when I need to, but I'll do it in cases where I don't need it, so that I don't have anything inhibiting my, for lack of better words, unseriousness. I'm just trying to feel lighter, right?
Yes.
That's interesting. And another thing,
and in fact, we would say that this is really you demonstrating to yourself your telepathic communion with the dolphin beings. Have you ever seen a serious dolphin?
I've never seen a serious dolphin. I know what you did there. But another thing about that's so interesting is that, well, I'm a Cancer, so I'm a water sign too. I'm not sure if I'm super big into astrology, but it's a part of the consensus, so I'm not going to shoot off against it. And then there was also like another thing that's really cool is that like I was born at Niagara Falls too, just as a birthplace, but never actually lived there. So I can kind of see how the serious connection manifested synchronistically with my life situation. But then it's like I'm also super interested in connecting with extraterrestrials ever since I was young. But not just Sirius. I never actually thought of Sirius. I always thought of the Greys because of like the culture here. The Greys are very prominent, which usually is where my awakening started. I guess many others, and the hybridization agenda. But I never thought Sirius would have a message for me. So just to close out, I'm wondering, is their message, like, if I got it correctly, just tapping into Sirius energy of like not being so serious, being playful, enjoy and feeling light? Is there anything you'd like to add to that message before I stop talking?
Yes, indeed. Well, we would just encourage you that you are one who does always answer your own question before you have finished asking it, in a sense. And that is indeed the vibration of the Sirius energy that they do project onto the planet through their engagement with the dolphin species. It is joy, it is abandon, it is fun for fun's sake, it is play, it is the idea of reaching out without fear, without expectation, the connection that human beings and dolphins are able to make. When you imagine that there is no shared language, there is no shared visual appearance, but there is almost a recognition of a smile. You do often hear people comment that dolphins look as if they are smiling, and there is a deep camaraderie in the idea of what the dolphins represent and the highest vibrational attainment of your human communities at this time. We have previously shared that the idea of joy is one of the highest vibrational frequency ranges that you can achieve. And dolphins are instructive in that regard. And that is indeed the message from Sirius that we would take today. Does that help?
Yes, that helps. It resonates so well with me. Thank you, Zariyah.
You're so welcome.
Hi, Zariyah.
Hello.
Thank you so much for your transmission today. Appreciate your time.
You are so welcome.
In preparation for contact, I am doing a lot of integration work. Bashar was saying that the year 2024 is the year of integration. And
yes, indeed.
I guess I'm wondering what your definition of integration actually is, because as I'm moving forward, I feel like it's like, am I integrating parts of myself, like cosmic parts of myself that I don't know yet, like counterparts and things that I haven't met? Or is it more like my inner child and different, maybe sort of like archetypal figures that have been created throughout? So part of what I'm doing is I'm processing like past traumas that I've had, and I'm noticing where my triggers are. I'm integrating my shadow self. And
yes.
So I guess I'm just wondering, in this preparation to integrate, what exactly am I integrating, and how do we integrate?
Yes, well, in one sense, the transmission that we were sharing last week was in an attempt to assist with the process of, as you say, integrating trauma, because it is the idea that if you can find that point of gratitude, whether it is for you as a child self or for a counterpart experience, if you can find that point of gratitude for the soul that was robust enough, was courageous enough, was empowered enough to undertake that experience so that you could expand, that would be that point of integration. Gratitude and integration are inextricably linked in a sense. And we would say, on the question of what am I integrating, it's all of it. It's your memories that you have from your timeline that you have been traveling along as you have pieced it together. It is your counterpart experiences as they drop into your awareness. It is the experiences of your galactic brethren. It is the experiences of your earth and your communities. It is the experiences that you are able to access of all the records of the Akash in non-physical. And that sounds like quite a job. We do understand. And that is why we would draw your attention to 2 points, that as you wake up to more of who you really are, as you become aware of yourself as being multidimensional, as having experienced all manner of things, you find a deep gratitude in your being that you are coming into awareness of that. And the thrill, the absolute sublime joy of coming into awareness of who you really are, and the magnificent tapestry that you have created through all your counterpart experiences and all your galactic connections, through all your ancestors in non-physical, that you are connected to all of it. You have access to all of it. How extraordinary. And the second component that might be prudent to consider is that the step past integration is recognition. What you are really doing is coming into recognition of who you are, what reality is, what existence is, what the universe is, what expansion is, what source is. And as you are able to more and more recognize that, the integration will happen seamlessly, almost effortlessly. So what we would encourage you to do is to stay in a heart-centered gratitude, even when you are buffeted by the slings and arrows of different realizations, and to move as gently as you can towards recognition of who you really are. Does that help?
It helps immensely. I just burst out into tears. You really struck a chord. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And as you have referred to Bashar's teachings, do you know what he teaches when he talks about tears?
When he talks about what?
Tears. Tears.
Oh, that they release chemicals.
Yes, indeed. So
Do you
let it
want
out.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
You are
letting it
so
out.
Hi, Zariyah. Greetings to you.
Hello.
Got a question. In your opening transmission, you reiterated some of the fourth dimensional awarenesses that we're on the cusp of discovering for ourselves and integrating. And you referred again to something you've referred to in around fifth dimensional energies. Could you speak a little more around that? Help us understand what fifth dimensional energies are? That would be helpful.
Yes. Well, fifth dimensional energies are non-physical or quasi-physical. And fourth dimension, you are still in physical reality, albeit a more malleable reality. Third dimension, you are really in a construct where the power of the illusion is very strong. And in that sense, that is the joy of this now moment, the joy of this transformation is that you are still in physical, but you are within the realm of non-physical. And so you are able to make connections to quasi-physical or non-physical beings, and they will make their impression upon your reality. And that is why we encourage you to notice the things that you could dismiss as coincidence, because really they are the impression of non-physical pushing through into your reality. And that is, in a sense, a perfect practice for contact, because some of the beings that you will be making contact with are quasi-physical, in the sense that they can appear in the fourth dimension, but they also reside partially in the fifth dimension. And so the idea generally of the fourth dimension is that you can straddle elements of the third and the fifth. And it is not until you are in the fourth dimension that you can really make contact with extraterrestrials. And you practice that vibration by making contact with non-physical in all of the ways that you can and do. If you were to remain in the third dimension, which you have already departed, and in this group, certainly we see it unlikely that beings would not go back to, but shift back into the third dimension. But from the third dimension, it is very difficult to become aware of the communications and impressions of quasi-physical beings in that illusion of the fixed nature of reality, if you will. Does that help?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Hello, I have another question related to hallucination, either under the influence of the drugs or medications or stress. Why some people could see their worst fear or their something that they want to see. What happened there?
Yes, well, in a sense, it is similar to a nightmare, if you will, that you are showing yourself the power that you have to create your experience and indeed create an illusion. The most commonplace experience that beings have of that is in the dream state. When you are in a dream, you are often consciously aware to an extent that you are creating a reality. You are creating an illusion that you are participating in as if it were real, and you are having experiences in as if it were real. But your reality as you created in a dream state is much more fluid. Cities can rise and fall. People can change their heads. Houses can burn down and be rebuilt all in a moment's notice. And we will tell you what you are showing yourself is that without the rigid boundaries of the physical mind, that is indeed how reality is created. It is something that you project, that you experience as you project. And different types of psychedelic drugs or even prescription medications or different substances and even altered states of consciousness, as you refer to it as stress, can also produce that effect, can give you a window into how malleable, how much of an illusion reality is. The opportunity of that is to recognize that when you are no longer in that altered state, you are empowered. You do still have that capacity to shape reality to your preference. Of course, there are many beings who can get, sometimes we don't want to say stuck, but can get preoccupied with creating negative illusions to scare themselves with. But the real opportunity that you have is to recognize that reality is an illusion, and you can create it any way you choose by altering your state to be in the state you prefer without any substance, medication, or otherwise. You don't even have to be asleep. Does that help?
Oh, thank you. Can we help people who are kind of stuck in that state?
Yes. In a sense, you can acknowledge, in a way, the reality of their reality by letting them know that you have created a reality that is one you don't prefer, and all you need to do is use that immense power, that immense focus that you have used to recreate a softer, a more soothing, a calmer version of reality. Often the inclination is to deny the reality of the being and to say that they have lost touch with reality. But in fact, they have plugged into something that is very real to them. And so if they can, in that state, understand that they are showing themselves their enormous co-creative power and to be encouraged to take perhaps more of a driver's seat in that regard, that if they can create the nightmare, they can create the dream. Does that help?
That is so beautiful. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
It's been a little bit over an hour. Would you like to wrap up?
Yes, if there are no further questions.
Well, there's one more question if you have time.
We will take the final question.
Hayford? You're muted, Hayford.
Hello?
Hello.
So my last question actually is, I just wanted some clarification on, so at times very late at night, I start to hear kind of footsteps from my roof area that
Do you?
Yes, and they're too,
And it's not even Christmas.
no, and the pacing and weight of these footsteps just seem to a bit too heavy to be an animal. So I was wondering if you could tell me anything about that.
Yes, well, we will draw your attention to the idea of the transmission today that we were encouraging you to recognize as non-physical intrudes more and more into your reality, to monitor how you respond to that, to monitor whether or not that elicits in you excitement or fear, because these are the practice runs for the preparation for contact. Do you, as you hear the footsteps on the roof, and we do not say it is contact or non-physical or anything else. What we tell you is that you hear footsteps on the roof, and that is an opportunity to assess your vibrational response to that. Do you go into a state of fear, pull your baseball bat from under the bed and pull down the blinds? Or do you start to imagine that extraterrestrial beings that you have been waiting for and calling in have landed a ship on them? Does that help?
It does. Yeah, thank you.
You are so welcome.
Thank you very much.
If there are no further questions, we will bid you good day. Hey guys.
Thank you.
Good, my hands are up here.
Well done, Esther.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Better go. I'm a bit spinning out a bit. It's a bit trippy. I better go. I'll speak to you later. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for
Bye,
coming.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks,
That was
Ais. Thank you
amazing.
so
Thank
much.
you. Have a great week.
Thanks.